Maya Johnson limped slowly across the school parking lot at 7:15 a.m., her left leg dragging slightly behind her right. The morning sun cast long shadows between the cars, and she could already hear the sounds of her classmates gathering near the gymnasium. Today was the day she had been dreading for weeks, the annual Riverside High School Fitness Challenge and Obstacle Course competition. Before we dive in, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. 6 months earlier, Maya had been the star athlete of her school. She ran track, played soccer, and could climb any rope or wall faster than anyone in her grade. But that all changed on a rainy November night when a drunk driver ran a red light and slammed into her family's car. Maya's parents walked away with minor injuries, but Maya's left leg took the full impact. The doctors said she was lucky to keep the leg at all, but the damage was severe. Multiple surgeries, months of physical therapy, and a titanium rod in her femur later. Maya was walking again. But she would never be the same athlete she once was. The other students had been talking about the obstacle course for weeks. It was a tradition at Riverside High, held every spring as part of their physical education program. Students would compete in teams and individually through a challenging course that included rope climbing, wall scaling, tire running, balance beams, and a final sprint. The winners got their names on a plaque in the main hallway, and more importantly, they got respect from their peers. Maya pushed through the heavy doors of the gymnasium and immediately felt all eyes turned toward her. She had gotten used to the stares and whispers over the past few months, but they still made her stomach turn. She made her way to the bleachers where the other students were sitting, listening to Coach Williams explain the rules of the competition. Tommy Richardson, who sat 2 rows behind Maya, leaned forward and whispered loudly enough for others to hear, "I can't believe they're making her do this. She can barely walk straight." Several students around him snickered, and Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. Sarah Mitchell, who used to be Maya's friend before the accident, turned to her friend Jessica and said, "This is going to be painful to watch. She should just sit this one out." Maya pretended not to hear, but each word felt like a punch to her chest. Coach Williams, a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes, continued explaining the course. The obstacle course has 6 stations. First, you'll army crawl under the cargo net for 30 feet. Then you'll climb over the 8-foot wall using the rope. After that, you'll run through the tire course, keeping your feet in each tire. The 4th station is the balance beam. You must cross the entire 12-foot beam without falling. Station 5 is rope climbing to ring the bell at the top. Finally, you'll sprint 50 yards to the finish line. Maya studied each obstacle as the coach described it. The cargo net would be tough with her leg, but possible. The wall climb worried her the most. Her left leg didn't have the same strength it used to have. The tire course would be slow but manageable. The balance beam might actually be easier than running since it required more focus than speed. The rope climb would be the biggest challenge since it required both legs to work together perfectly. When Coach Williams finished explaining, he looked directly at Maya. "Johnson, I need to speak with you privately." Maya's heart sank. She knew what was coming. He was going to tell her she couldn't participate, that it was too dangerous, and that she should just watch from the sidelines. She followed him to his office, her limp more pronounced than usual due to her nerves. Coach Williams closed the door and sat down across from her. "Maya, I know this is difficult for you," he began. "I want you to know that you don't have to do this. I can excuse you from the fitness test and we can work out an alternative assignment." Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she forced them back. "I want to do it, Coach. I know I won't win, but I want to try." Coach Williams studied her face for a long moment. "Are you sure? The other kids, they might not understand. They might say things." "They're already saying things," Maya replied quietly. "They think I'm broken. Maybe I am broken, but I'm still here. I'm still me." The coach nodded slowly. "All right then. But I want you to promise me something. If at any point during the course you feel like you're pushing too hard or you're in pain, you stop immediately. Your health is more important than any competition." Maya agreed, and they returned to the gymnasium where the other students were stretching and preparing for the challenge. The class was divided into groups of 6, and each group would run the course together, with individual times recorded for ranking. Maya found herself in a group with Tommy Richardson, the boy who had made the comment about her walking. Also in her group were Jessica Wang, Marcus Thompson, Ashley Rivera, and Kevin Park. Tommy was considered one of the strongest athletes in their grade, and Jessica was known for her speed. Marcus and Ashley were both solid competitors, and Kevin was decent at most sports. Maya knew she was the weak link in the group. As they waited for their turn, Maya could feel the eyes of her classmates on her. Some looked at her with pity, others with curiosity about whether she would even attempt the full course. A few, like her former friend Sarah, looked at her with something that resembled contempt, as if Maya's presence somehow diminished the competition. "First group, you're up," Coach Williams called out. Maya watched as the first group of 6 students tackled the course. They moved through the obstacles with varying degrees of success, but all of them completed the full circuit. The fastest time was 2 minutes and 43 seconds, set by Jake Morrison, one of the school's track stars. Group after group went through the course. Some students struggled with certain obstacles, particularly the rope climb, but most managed to finish. Maya studied each person's technique, trying to figure out how she could modify their approaches to work with her limitations. Finally, Coach Williams called out, "Group 7, you're up." That's Richardson, Wang, Thompson, Rivera, Park, and Johnson. Maya's group walked to the starting line. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, and her palms were sweaty despite the cool morning air in the gymnasium. The other students in her group seemed confident and ready. Tommy stretched his arms and cracked his neck. Jessica bounced on her toes, warming up her calves. "Remember," Coach Williams announced to the watching crowd, "this is not just about speed. We're looking for determination, technique, and sportsmanship. The real victory is in the effort you put forth." Maya knew the coach had added that last part for her benefit, but she appreciated it nonetheless. "On your mark," Coach Williams called out. "Get set. Go." The 6 students took off toward the first obstacle. Maya immediately fell behind the others as they approached the cargo net. She watched Tommy dive under the net and army crawl through at lightning speed. Jessica was right behind him, followed by Marcus and Ashley. Kevin was having some trouble with the low clearance, but he was still ahead of Maya. Maya dropped to her hands and knees and began crawling under the net. The metal cables were only about 18 inches off the ground, forcing her to stay very low. Her injured leg dragged behind her, making it difficult to maintain momentum. She could hear some of the watching students making comments. "Come on, Maya. You can do this." That was Emma Rodriguez, one of the few students who had remained friendly with Maya after her accident. "This is taking forever," she heard someone else say. Maya gritted her teeth and kept crawling. By the time she emerged from under the cargo net, the other 5 members of her group were already over the 8-foot wall and moving toward the tire course. The wall was Maya's biggest fear. It was made of plywood with small hand and footholds carved into it, and a thick rope hanging down from the top. In her prime, Maya could scale this wall in seconds. Now she wasn't sure she could get over it at all. She grabbed the rope with both hands and placed her right foot on the lowest foothold. The rope was rough and burned her palms as she tried to pull herself up. She managed to get her left foot onto a hold, but when she tried to push up with her injured leg, sharp pain shot through her hip and thigh. Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She could hear the crowd of students watching, some cheering her on, others making jokes about her slow progress. She blocked out the noise and focused on the task at hand. Instead of trying to use both legs equally, Maya decided to rely more heavily on her arms and her good leg. She pulled herself up with the rope while using her right leg to push off the footholds. Her left leg was more for balance and stability than for power. Slowly, painfully, she climbed. Her arms burned with the effort and sweat dripped into her eyes. About halfway up the wall, she paused to rest, pressing her face against the wooden surface. "You've got this, Maya," Emma called out again. "Just give up already." Tommy shouted from somewhere ahead in the course. "You're holding everyone back." That comment lit a fire in Maya's chest. She had been feeling sorry for herself, focusing on what she couldn't do instead of what she could do. But Tommy's cruel words reminded her of all the times over the past 6 months when people had told her what she couldn't do, what she would never do again. With renewed determination, Maya pulled herself up the rope. Hand over hand, foot by foot, she climbed until she reached the top of the wall. Getting over the top was tricky. She had to swing her leg over while holding all her weight with her arms. Her injured leg scraped against the wood, sending another spike of pain through her body. But she made it over and dropped down to the other side. By now, Tommy, Jessica, and Marcus had finished the tire course and were attempting the balance beam. Ashley was still in the tires and Kevin was just starting them. Maya was dead last, but she was still in the race. The tire course consisted of 12 old car tires laid out in a zigzag pattern. Participants had to run through, placing one foot in each tire without touching the rubber. For someone with 2 good legs, it was a test of agility and rhythm. For Maya, it was going to be a test of balance and determination. She approached the first tire and stepped into it with her right foot. The key, she realized, was to think of it not as running, but as controlled stepping. She moved from tire to tire, taking her time to ensure her footing was secure before moving to the next one. Her rhythm was different from the other students, less fluid, more deliberate, but it was working. "Looking good, Johnson," Coach Williams called out encouragingly. Maya found herself getting into a groove in the tire course. Her injured leg was actually holding up better than she had expected. The stepping motion was easier on her hip than running or climbing. She picked up her pace slightly, gaining confidence with each tire. By the time she finished the tire course, Ashley and Kevin were on the balance beam, and the first 3 finishers were attempting the rope climb. Maya could see that Jessica was having trouble with the rope. She was strong enough but couldn't seem to get the technique right with her legs. The balance beam was 12 feet long and about 4 inches wide. Maya had always been good at balance even as a child. She hoped that skill would still be there despite her injury. She stepped onto the beam and immediately felt her body adjust to the narrow surface. Balance had always been about core strength and focus for her, not leg strength. She moved slowly but steadily across the beam, her arms out to her sides for stability. About halfway across, she felt her left leg start to shake with fatigue. The beam suddenly seemed to sway beneath her feet, though she knew it was solid. Maya paused and took a deep breath, centering herself both physically and mentally. "You're doing great," Emma shouted from the sidelines. "Don't look down." Maya smiled slightly and continued across the beam. She was surprised to find that this obstacle was actually easier for her than some of the others. When she reached the end and hopped down, she felt a small surge of pride. The rope climb was the final obstacle before the sprint to the finish. A thick rope hung from the gymnasium ceiling about 20 feet high, with a bell at the top that participants had to ring. Maya looked up at the rope and felt her confidence falter. This was going to require her legs to work together in a way they hadn't since before the accident. Jessica was still struggling with the rope, about 10 feet up but unable to go higher. Tommy had already rung the bell and was sprinting toward the finish line. Marcus was about 3/4 of the way up, and Ashley was just starting her climb. Maya grabbed the rope and tried to remember the technique. She needed to grip the rope between her feet and use her legs to push up while pulling with her arms. The problem was that her left leg didn't have the strength or flexibility it used to have. She started climbing, but immediately ran into trouble. Every time she tried to clamp the rope between her feet, her left leg wouldn't hold properly. After struggling for several seconds and only making it about 3 feet up the rope, Maya made a decision. She would climb with just her arms and her right leg. It would be incredibly difficult and would require all of her upper body strength, but it might be possible. She wrapped her right leg around the rope for stability and began pulling herself up hand over hand. The rope burned her palms, and her arms screamed in protest, but Maya kept climbing. She could hear the crowd getting louder, though she couldn't make out individual words. All of her focus was on the next handhold, the next pull upward, 10 feet up. 12 feet, 15 feet. Maya's arms were shaking with fatigue, and she didn't think she could go much farther. She looked up and saw the bell still seemed impossibly far away. Just then, she heard a voice that surprised her. "Come on, Maya. You're almost there." It was Jessica, who had given up on her own rope climb and was cheering Maya on instead. Maya found another ounce of strength and pulled herself up another foot, then another. Her right leg was cramping from being wrapped around the rope for so long, but she didn't dare readjust her position. 18 feet, 19 feet. Maya reached up and her fingers brushed the bell. She was so close, but her arm simply had nothing left. She hung there for a moment, her whole body shaking with the effort of holding her weight. "Ring it!" someone shouted from below. Maya couldn't tell who it was, but the voice was filled with genuine excitement and encouragement. With one final surge of determination, Maya pulled herself up just enough to grab the bell and give it a shake. The clear, loud ring echoed through the gymnasium, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Maya's grip on the rope immediately gave out, and she slid down faster than she had intended. She hit the mat hard and rolled onto her back, gasping for breath. Her arms were completely spent and her injured leg was throbbing. But she had done it. She had rung the bell. "Maya, Maya, Maya." The chant started with Emma and quickly spread through the crowd of watching students. Even some of the kids who had been making fun of her earlier were clapping and cheering. Maya struggled to her feet and looked around in amazement. Kevin was patting her on the back and Ashley was grinning at her. Even Jessica, who hadn't spoken to Maya in months, came over and said, "That was incredible. I couldn't even do the rope climb and I have 2 good legs." But Maya wasn't finished yet. There was still the 50-yard sprint to the finish line. Tommy had already finished with a time that was probably going to be one of the best of the day. Marcus and Ashley were finishing up their sprints and Kevin was just starting his. Maya walked to the starting line for the final sprint. Her body was exhausted, her leg was aching, and her arms felt like jelly. But she had made it this far, and she was going to finish what she started. Coach Williams came over to her before she started the sprint. "Maya, you've already proven everything you need to prove. If you want to walk this last part, that's perfectly fine." Maya looked down the 50-yard straightaway to the finish line. It seemed like a mile away. "I'm going to run it," she said quietly. She lined up at the starting line and waited for the coach's signal. When he blew his whistle, Maya took off as fast as her injured leg would allow. It wasn't pretty, and it certainly wasn't fast by normal standards, but she was running. Her left leg dragged slightly with each step, and her gait was uneven. But Maya pumped her arms and pushed forward. The crowd was cheering louder than she had ever heard them cheer for anything at school. It seemed like every student in the gymnasium was on their feet. 20 yards, 30 yards. Maya could feel her legs starting to give out, but she refused to slow down. 40 yards. The finish line was right there. 45 yards. Maya could see Coach Williams holding the stopwatch, a huge smile on his face. 50 yards. Maya crossed the finish line and immediately collapsed onto the gymnasium floor. Completely spent but victorious, she had completed the entire obstacle course. Her final time was 8 minutes and 37 seconds. It was by far the slowest time of the day, and it wouldn't be winning any awards. But as Maya lay on the gymnasium floor, gasping for breath and smiling through her exhaustion, she felt like she had just won the Olympics. The other students gathered around her, and Maya was amazed by their reactions. These were the same kids who had been making jokes about her injured leg just 2 hours earlier. Now they were looking at her with something she hadn't seen in months: respect. "That was the most badass thing I've ever seen," Tommy said, and Maya could tell he meant it. "I'm sorry about what I said earlier. That was stupid." One by one, her classmates came up to congratulate her or simply to pat her on the shoulder. Some of them had tears in their eyes. Sarah Mitchell, her former friend who had been cold to Maya since the accident, knelt down beside her. "Maya, I owe you an apology," Sarah said, her voice shaky. "I've been awful to you because I didn't know how to deal with what happened. Watching you today, you're still the same person you always were. You're still the strongest person I know." Maya felt tears finally come to her eyes, but they were good tears. For the first time since her accident, she felt like herself again. Not the girl with the injured leg, not the former athlete, just Maya. Coach Williams helped her to her feet and handed her a bottle of water. "Johnson," he said, "in 30 years of coaching, I have never seen a more impressive display of determination and heart. Your time might not be the fastest, but you just taught everyone in this room something about what real strength looks like." As Maya limped toward the locker room to change clothes, she reflected on the morning's events. She had started the day dreading the obstacle course, convinced that it would only highlight what she had lost. Instead, it had shown her what she still had. She would never be the same athlete she was before the accident. Her left leg would always be weaker, and she would always have a slight limp. But she was still Maya Johnson, and she was still capable of amazing things. The next day at school, Maya noticed that people looked at her differently. The pitying stares were gone, replaced by nods of recognition and genuine smiles. Emma Rodriguez wasn't the only one saying hello to her in the hallways anymore. More importantly, Maya looked at herself differently. She had spent 6 months focusing on her limitations, on what she couldn't do anymore. The obstacle course had forced her to focus on her abilities, on what she could still accomplish with determination and creativity. 3 weeks later, Coach Williams called Maya into his office again. This time, however, it wasn't to ask if she wanted to sit out an activity. "Maya," he said, "I've been thinking about what happened during the obstacle course, and I have a proposition for you. I know you can't run track anymore, but I wonder if you'd be interested in helping me coach some of the younger students. You have something to teach them that I can't. You understand what it means to overcome real adversity." Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. "I'd love that, Coach." "Great," he said. And Maya, there's one more thing. We're adding a new award to our annual fitness challenge. It's going to be called the Maya Johnson Determination Award, and it will go to the student who shows the most heart and perseverance, regardless of their finishing time or physical abilities. Maya's eyes filled with tears again. Coach, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. You've already said it all. As Maya walked out of Coach Williams's office and down the hallway toward her next class, she passed the trophy case where the names of obstacle course winners were displayed. She wouldn't see her name there for fastest time or highest score, but she knew that didn't matter. Her real victory wasn't measured in minutes and seconds. It was measured in the respect she had earned from her classmates, the confidence she had regained in herself, and the knowledge that she could face any challenge with determination and grace. Maya Johnson had learned that being broken didn't mean being defeated. Sometimes it just meant finding new ways to be strong.